How does a healthy 39-year-old man die silently in his own bed, with no signs of struggle, no history of illness, and no warning at all? That question would soon haunt the quiet town of Camas, Utah. In the early hours of March 4th, 2022, Camas was asleep. This was a town where life moved slowly, where people knew each other by name, and where serious crime was almost unheard of. On the outskirts of town, a well-kept house on Willow Court sat in the darkness. Accent lights framed the exterior. Inside, only a single lamp was still on. At 3:22 a.m., emergency services received a call. A woman's voice came through the line, unsteady and shaken. She told the dispatcher that her husband was not breathing. She gave the address, 282 Willow Court. The call was logged as an urgent medical emergency. An unconscious person. 8 minutes later, paramedics arrived. They found a man lying at the foot of the bed. He was 39 years old. His name was Cory Richens. He had no pulse. His skin was cold. Resuscitation attempts were made, but they failed. At 3:36 a.m., Cory Richens was pronounced dead at the scene. The house told no story of violence. There were no signs of a struggle. No overturned furniture. No broken objects. Nothing appeared out of place. To the first responders, everything pointed toward a sudden and tragic cardiac event. A healthy man taken without warning in the middle of the night. An unexpected loss. A devastating accident. That was how the case was recorded. At least at first. Cory Richens was not someone people expected to die suddenly. He was known in Camas as dependable, disciplined, and physically strong. He ran a successful construction and stonemasonry business. He hunted, traveled, and worked long hours. He was a father of 3 young boys and, by all accounts, a man who planned carefully and lived methodically. Nothing about his life suggested collapse. His wife, Cory Richens, told authorities that the evening before had been calm. She said they had spent time together in their bedroom, talking about the future. She prepared him a drink. Later, she claimed one of their sons woke up from a nightmare. Cory said she went to comfort him and fell asleep beside him. When she returned to the bedroom hours later, Eric was on the floor, unresponsive. Her explanation was simple. It sounded plausible. And in a town like Camas, no one had a reason to doubt it. But deaths that appear simple sometimes hide complex truths. When Eric's body was sent for examination, the assumption of natural causes began to unravel. The toxicology report revealed something that should never have been there. A substance powerful enough to shut down the human body within minutes. A substance that does not appear by accident. What initially looked like a quiet medical tragedy would soon become the center of a criminal investigation. One that exposed deep financial conflicts, disturbing warning signs, and a trail of digital evidence that could not be ignored. This is the story of Cory Richens. A story that begins with a single question and ends with an answer that no one in Camas was prepared to face. Camas, Utah is the kind of town people move to when they want safety, predictability, and peace. With a population of just over 2,500 residents, it has one main street, a handful of local businesses, several schools, and a church that becomes the social center every Sunday morning. In Camas, doors are often left unlocked during the day. Children ride bikes freely through neighborhoods. News travels fast even when it is minor. And when tragedy strikes, it does not stay private for long. The house on Willow Court stood slightly apart from the rest. It was larger than most, carefully maintained, with a wide driveway, trimmed lawn, and large windows that caught the mountain light in the late afternoon. To neighbors, it represented success. A family doing well. A life that had come together exactly as it was supposed to. Cory Richens, the man found dead inside that house, was known throughout the area as reliable and disciplined. Born in 1982, Eric grew up in Utah in a family that valued hard work. His parents, Jean and Linda Richens, remember him as a boy who took responsibility seriously from an early age. He spent much of his childhood helping his father, learning how to fix things, how to work with his hands, and how to follow through on commitments. After graduating from high school, Eric attended the University of Utah, where he studied construction and business. Instead of working under an established company, he chose to build something of his own. He launched a stonemasonry and construction business that gradually expanded across the region. Eric was not the kind of owner who stayed behind a desk. He visited job sites personally, oversaw materials, and often worked alongside his crew. Clients described him as punctual, detail-oriented, and honest. In an industry where trust mattered, his reputation was solid. Outside of work, hunting played a central role in Eric's life. He traveled frequently, going on hunting trips to Canada, Mexico, and even Africa. His office and home displayed trophies, photographs, and souvenirs from those expeditions. To Eric, hunting was not about display. According to friends, it was about focus, patience, and self-discipline. It was how he stayed grounded. In 2005, Eric married his first wife, Julie. The couple built a quiet life together, but it was cut short in 2011 when Julie was killed in a car accident. She had been stopped at a red light when her vehicle was struck by a pickup truck. The loss deeply affected Eric. Those close to him said he withdrew for a long time and rarely spoke about the accident. The tragedy left a permanent mark, but it did not define him. 2 years later, Eric met Cory Richens. Cory was confident, energetic, and ambitious. She had grown up in Utah and pursued higher education, earning a degree in health services before completing a master's degree in human resource management. Early in her career, she worked in healthcare administration, focusing on staff training and organizational systems. Colleagues described her as driven and competitive, someone who wanted to move forward quickly. Eventually, Cory decided healthcare would not give her the financial independence she wanted. She experimented with the small business ventures before transitioning into real estate. Over time, she founded Cory Richens Realty and began specializing in high-end homes in the Park City area, about 20 minutes from Camas. In professional settings, Cory projected confidence and control. She marketed herself as a self-made entrepreneur, someone who could operate independently and compete in a demanding market. Eric and Cory married in 2013. Together, they had 3 sons, Carter, Ashton, and Weston. To the outside world, their family appeared stable and successful. Eric worked long hours but made a point of being home in the evenings. Cory balanced her real estate work with parenting. Neighbors remembered seeing the boys playing in the yard, Eric fixing vehicles or equipment, and Cory talking on the phone about listings and deals. Family photos showed smiling faces, holidays, and vacations. Nothing about the Richens household suggested crisis. Financially, the family seemed secure. They owned a home, maintained multiple vehicles, and had steady income streams. Eric was careful with money. He believed in planning ahead, avoiding unnecessary debt, and maintaining control over finances. He was not impulsive. He did not gamble on uncertain outcomes. His approach was methodical. Cory, however, viewed success differently. While Eric focused on stability, Cory focused on expansion. She was constantly pursuing new investments, flipping properties, and leveraging credit to fund larger projects. To her, financial growth required bold decisions. Risk was not something to avoid. It was something to manage. At first, these differences were not visible to those around them. Couples argue. Businesses have ups and downs. From the outside, the Richens family continued to function smoothly. Cory remained active on social media, sharing professional achievements and family moments. Eric remained steady and reserved, the dependable figure people had always known. But beneath that surface, tension was quietly building. The house on Willow Court, once a symbol of stability, was becoming a place where opposing values collided. Trust was being tested. Control was being challenged. And choices were being made that would eventually carry irreversible consequences. To the town of Camas, Eric Richens was a respected contractor, a devoted father, and a man who lived by routine and responsibility. That image made his sudden death all the more difficult to accept, because men like Eric do not simply collapse without warning. And as investigators would soon discover, the story of his death could not be explained by appearances alone. From the outside, the Richens household appeared balanced and prosperous. But inside the marriage, 2 fundamentally different views of money, control, and the future were quietly colliding. Eric Richens believed in structure. He earned before spending, avoided unnecessary debt, and planned several steps ahead. His construction business required discipline and long-term thinking. One bad decision could ripple through an entire year of projects. For Eric, financial stability was not just practical. It was a form of responsibility, especially as a father of 3. Cory Richens viewed money differently. To her, financial growth demanded momentum. She believed that expansion required bold moves, aggressive investments, and constant reinvention. In real estate, hesitation meant losing opportunities. Cory was not afraid of debt. She saw leverage as a tool, not a threat. The faster she moved, the closer she believed she would get to financial independence and professional recognition. At first, these opposing philosophies existed side by side. Eric focused on his company. Cory focused on her listings. But as Cory's ambitions grew, so did the financial strain on their marriage. By late 2021, Eric discovered that large sums of money had been withdrawn from their joint accounts without his knowledge. Court records would later show that the total exceeded $200,000 United States dollars. Cory had also accessed a home equity line of credit tied to their house, using it to fund personal expenses and speculative investments. To Cory, these were business decisions. To Eric, they were a breach of trust. Arguments became more frequent. According to people close to Eric, he felt blindsided and increasingly uneasy. He confronted Cory about the spending. She defended herself, insisting that these risks were necessary if they wanted to move forward. Eric disagreed. He did not want growth at the cost of security. The tension reached a critical point over a property in Park City. Cory had her eye on a luxury home valued at approximately $2 million United States dollars. She described it as a cornerstone investment, something that would elevate her real estate portfolio and establish her as a serious player in the high-end market. Eric saw it as reckless. The numbers did not add up in his view. The debt exposure was too high. The risk was unnecessary. For Eric, the Park City home symbolized everything he feared about Cory's approach to money. For Cory, his refusal represented an obstacle standing in the way of her vision. But financial conflict was not the only warning sign. In hindsight, there were moments that now read less like coincidence and more like escalation. During a trip to Greece, Eric suddenly became violently ill after consuming a drink Cory had prepared for him. The symptoms came on quickly. Severe nausea, weakness, dizziness. He required medical attention. Doctors were unable to give a definitive diagnosis and suggested severe food poisoning. At the time, the incident was dismissed as an unfortunate travel mishap. Eric was not convinced. A few months later, on February 14th, 2022, Valentine's Day, another incident occurred. Cory prepared Eric a sandwich. After taking a single bite, Eric felt an immediate reaction. His face went numb. His breathing became difficult. His body felt unresponsive. Eric carried an epinephrine pen due to known allergies, and using it likely saved his life. This time, he did not dismiss what happened. Eric confided in his business partner and his sister. According to statements later given to investigators, Eric told them plainly, "I think she just tried to poison me." He did not say it as a joke. He said it with fear. Despite that fear, Eric did not contact law enforcement. Those close to him would later explain why. Eric did not want to destroy his family. He did not want public scandal. Most of all, he did not want to put his 3 sons through a bitter divorce or criminal investigation. He believed that if he could quietly regain control of his finances and protect himself, the situation might stabilize. In response, Eric took decisive steps. He changed critical financial documents that had previously been under Cory's control. He removed her as the beneficiary from his life insurance policies and named his sister instead. He altered his will. He revoked Cory's financial power of attorney. These were not impulsive decisions. They were calculated actions taken by someone who felt threatened and was trying to limit exposure. Outwardly, Eric continued to play the role of husband and father. But those closest to him noticed a shift. He worked longer hours. He avoided discussing future plans. He appeared tense and guarded when Cory was mentioned. The calm, steady man people knew was still there, but something underneath had changed. He no longer felt safe. Eric spoke openly with friends about his unease. He said he was staying in the marriage for the sake of his children. He believed that leaving abruptly could make things worse. He hoped time would create distance. But the pattern was already set. By early March 2022, the marriage was no longer just strained. It was unstable. Cory continued to push forward with her real estate ambitions. Eric continued to resist financial risk. The Park City home deal lingered unresolved. Trust had eroded. And the warning signs, though visible in hindsight, remained hidden from the outside world. To neighbors in Camas, nothing appeared wrong. The family still lived at Willow Court. The boys still played in the yard. Cory still posted professionally polished images. Eric still went to work every day. But inside that house, the balance had shifted. And when the night of March 3rd arrived, the pressure that had been building quietly for months would reach a point of no return. March 3rd, 2022 began like an ordinary day in the Richens household. There were no public arguments, no calls to police, no visible signs that anything catastrophic was about to happen. That evening, Cory Richens told friends that she and Eric were celebrating a major milestone. According to her, she had secured the purchase of a new home in Park City, valued at approximately $2 million United States dollars. She described it as the beginning of a new chapter for their family. Eric did not share that excitement. Friends later stated that Eric believed the deal was financially reckless. He had refused to sign off on it. But despite his objections, he returned home that night. Whatever tension existed between them, it remained behind closed doors. According to Cory's account, the couple spent the evening in their bedroom talking about their future and their children. At some point, she prepared Eric a drink. A Moscow Mule, his favorite. He drank it. Later, Cory claimed that one of their sons woke up from a nightmare. She said she went to comfort him and eventually fell asleep beside him. She stated that she did not wake again until after 3 o'clock in the morning. When she returned to the bedroom, she said Eric was on the floor, unresponsive. At 3:22 a.m., and she called emergency services. Paramedics arrived within minutes. Eric Richens was pronounced dead at the scene. There were no visible injuries, no signs of a struggle, no indication of forced entry. The initial assumption was sudden cardiac arrest, but the autopsy changed everything. Eric had no history of heart disease, no underlying medical conditions that would explain a sudden collapse. As a result, toxicology testing was ordered as a standard precaution. What it revealed shocked even experienced forensic specialists. Eric Richens had fentanyl in his system. Not a trace amount. Not a therapeutic dose. The concentration detected in his bloodstream was approximately 5 times the lethal threshold. According to the forensic report, this level would have caused rapid respiratory failure followed by cardiac arrest. Death would have occurred within minutes. There was more. The chemical composition of the substance did not match regulated pharmaceutical fentanyl. It bore the markers of illicit, non-medical grade fentanyl. Street fentanyl. The kind that does not enter a person's body by accident. Medical examiners also concluded that the drug had been ingested orally. It had not been injected. It had not been absorbed through a patch. It had been consumed most likely through food or drink. Investigators now had a clear question. Who had access to Eric's food and drinks that night? The answer pointed in only one direction. As the investigation intensified, detectives began reconstructing the hours leading up to Eric's death. Cory Richens had claimed she fell asleep next to her son and left her phone in the bedroom. Digital forensic analysis told a different story. Phone records showed that Cory's device was unlocked more than 10 times between midnight and 3 a.m. During the window when Eric was believed to have died. Messages were sent and deleted. Some were permanently erased. This activity directly contradicted her statement that she was asleep. With a court order, investigators accessed Cory's phone backups. What they found shifted the case from suspicion to structure. The data revealed a series of messages between Cory and a woman identified in court documents as SL According to investigators, SL had access to prescription medications. The conversation dated back to late 2021. In one message, Cory wrote, "I need some painkillers for an investor." Weeks later, she sent another message. "I need something stronger. Michael Jackson stuff." To investigators, that phrase stood out immediately. Michael Jackson stuff is commonly used slang for powerful opioids, particularly fentanyl. Financial records supported the messages. 2 separate transfers of $900 United States were made from Cory's personal account to SL. One in December 2021. Another in mid-February 2022. Neither transfer included a description. When questioned, SL admitted to providing Cory with pills and powder. She claimed she did not fully understand the nature or potency of the substance she was handing over. The timeline aligned with alarming precision. After the first transfer, Eric became severely ill during the trip to Greece. After the second, the Valentine's Day sandwich incident nearly killed him. Days after the final exchange, Eric was dead. Investigators concluded that this pattern was not accidental. Cory's behavior following Eric's death further deepened suspicion. The day after he died, she contacted a locksmith to open the family safe. She told the technician there were important documents inside. The locksmith later described her as anxious and impatient. Investigators discovered that Eric had recently changed the safe's access code, effectively locking Cory out. Within weeks, Cory moved forward with paperwork to finalize the Park City property purchase. The same deal Eric had refused to approve was completed under her name. Almost immediately, the property was listed for resale at $3.5 million United States dollars. Her digital footprint revealed additional red flags. Recovered browser data showed searches related to lethal doses of fentanyl, overdose symptoms, and whether poison could be detected after cremation. Although many searches had been deleted, enough fragments remained to establish intent. For nearly a year, Cory Richens remained publicly untouchable. She was viewed as a grieving widow, raising 3 sons alone. She accepted condolences. She spoke calmly about loss. And in March 2023, she released a children's book titled, "Are You With Me?" The book told the story of a young boy coping with the death of his father. In interviews, Cory explained that she wrote it to help her sons process grief. She appeared on television programs, presenting herself as a mother who had transformed tragedy into compassion. The release date was symbolic. March 5th, 2023. One day after the anniversary of Eric's death. What viewers did not know was that Cory had not written the book herself. Investigators later learned that she had commissioned it through a ghostwriting company, providing only general concepts and notes. Behind the scenes, law enforcement had completed their work. By May 2023, prosecutors had assembled a comprehensive case. Text messages, financial transfers, toxicology results, digital evidence, testimony. Each piece reinforced the same conclusion. On May 8, 2023, Cory Richens was arrested at her home in Camas. She was charged with first-degree felony murder, fraud, and forgery. Bail was denied. The image of a grieving widow collapsed overnight. The town of Camas was left to confront a reality it never expected. A death that once seemed natural had been reclassified as deliberate. A family that appeared perfect was now defined by accusation. And the story was no longer about an unexplained loss. It was about whether justice would catch up to a crime hidden in plain sight. The town of Camas has not been the same since the death of Eric Richens. What once appeared to be a sudden medical tragedy has become one of the most unsettling criminal cases in recent memory. A case that forced a quiet community to confront a disturbing reality. That violence does not always arrive with noise, blood, or visible struggle. Sometimes it arrives silently, hidden behind routine, trust, and familiarity. Eric Richens is no longer remembered only as a skilled stonemason, a devoted father, or a reliable man who built his life with discipline and care. His name is now tied to a question that continues to echo through courtrooms and headlines. How could a man who feared for his safety, who took steps to protect himself, still end up dead inside his own home? For Cory Richens, the transformation in public perception has been just as dramatic. Once seen as a grieving widow and devoted mother, she now stands accused of orchestrating a calculated crime. Prosecutors argue that the evidence tells a consistent story. Financial motive? Access to a lethal substance. Prior warning signs. Digital footprints that contradict her account. Each element alone might be questioned. Together, they form a narrative the state believes is impossible to ignore. Cory Richens has pleaded not guilty. Under the law, she remains innocent until proven otherwise. Her defense maintains that the case is built on circumstantial evidence and interpretation. The trial will ultimately decide her fate. But regardless of the verdict, the damage is already irreversible. Eric's construction business is shut down. The house on Willow Court no longer belongs to the family. His 3 sons now live under the care of relatives, growing up in the shadow of a case that will follow them for the rest of their lives. A children's book meant to explain loss has been removed from circulation, its message overshadowed by the accusations surrounding its author. In Kamaz, people speak carefully now. The Richens name is rarely mentioned aloud. The story lingers not as gossip, but as a warning. A reminder that appearances can deceive, and that even the most orderly lives may hide fractures invisible to outsiders. This case is not just about fentanyl, money, or digital evidence. It is about trust. About what happens when ambition overrides restraint, and when private conflict is allowed to escalate behind closed doors. It is about the modern reality of crime, where intent is often recorded not in eyewitness accounts, but in messages, transfers, and search histories. As the legal process continues, one truth remains unchanged. Eric Richens never got the chance to protect himself fully. His sons never got the chance to say goodbye. And a town that once believed it was immune to tragedy learned that no place truly is. The question that opened this story still stands. How does a healthy 39-year-old man die silently in his own bed? According to prosecutors, the answer is simple. Because someone he trusted made sure he never woke up.